What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. If you thought that talks of the 51st state were over after the election, since Mark Carney vowed to be the best man to fight and negotiate with Donald Trump, well, forget all that. You've been duped. In fact, all of his voters are about to realize they're going to get what they paid for, as things haven't changed. Nothing has changed. In fact, things are just heating up. Donald Trump's sitting over the weekend talking about on Meet the Press to talk about where he sees things moving forward with America now that Mark Carney is in. Now, don't forget, a lot of people pulled ties to Brookfield through Donald Trump, the connections with Mark Carney to Donald Trump. I'm not worried about any of that today. I'm not focusing on any of that again. I was going to do a video on it, but David over at Moose on the Loose has done such a great job with it. I'd highly recommend going to check that out because, man, he really does his homework, and that's worth checking a watch on. But nonetheless, I want to talk about this tweet out from Brian Lilly today as Trump sat down and was questioned about annexing Canada. But now Tucker Carlson made comments a while back about liberating Canada, about if military was going to be used, if what we could see moving forward. We heard about Trump's comments about Greenland, which again are addressed in this clip, but also what he plans to do with Mark Carney. Are the tariffs coming to an end? Is there going to be negotiations on the table? Is Carney going to shut it down like he claims because he's an outsider and he's going to look within himself and find how to fix these problems? No, none of it's happening. Donald Trump is still on the attack. I'm going to play a little clip. We're going to have to jump in periodically to talk about what's going on here. But let's get it started, and we'll go from there.
Let's move on to Canada. You have long talked about making Canada the 51st state. There's obviously a new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, who you spoke to after his victory. He says that you didn't talk to him in that call about making Canada a 51st state.
No, he called me. He was very nice, and I congratulated him. He had a victory. It's a very close victory. It's, there's no majority or anything, so that's going to make things a little bit difficult, I think, for him to run. But he nevertheless had a victory, and he's a very nice man, I think.
Do you plan to talk to him about making Canada a 51st state?
He wants to come and see me. He's going to come this week or next week.
So will you talk to him about making Canada a 51st state, annexing Canada?
I'll always talk about that. You know why? We subsidize Canada to the tune of $200 billion a year.
So he's going to get into the subsidizing. He's going to get into everything that he does with Canada. He's going to say, we don't need their cars, their lumber, their oil, their energy. They do need our energy. And that has been most apparent with the discussions of the revival of Keystone XL. Again, this is all, what you have to do is separate government from business. When you have to look at the business side of things, in any negotiation, you don't want to show weakness. And Donald Trump certainly is one of those people. He never shows weakness at the table. He never admits when he's wrong, for that matter. I've never actually think that I've ever seen a time where Trump has ever made an apology or said I'm wrong on something. And that's how you know he knows his way around the business platform. He's a tough negotiator. So he's going to go to the table to say, look, we subsidize you. We give you all these things. You're getting nothing from us, or you're giving nothing back to us. You should become a 51st state. The talk isn't going away. He's very set on this.
We don't need their cars. In fact, we don't want their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't even want their energy. We have more than they do. We don't want their lumber. We have great lumber. All I have to do is free it up from the environmental lunatics. We don't need anything that they have. We're giving them. I asked Mr. Trudeau, who I call governor.
Now, before he gets into Governor Trudeau, could you imagine if Danielle Smith talked like this? We don't need to give our subsidies. We don't need to give our oil. We don't need to worry about energy from the rest of the country. If we joined with British Columbia, we don't need to worry about logging or paper or lumber. Like, this is where, if we had somebody with the right fortitude that was prepared to speak out against the federal government this way, I'm not saying start a war, but if you had somebody like this going up against the federal government in Canada, I think you'd see better results, especially when we know how many cards are being held at the table. Let's keep going.
Governor Trudeau, I said, not Prime Minister, Governor. I said, Governor Trudeau, could I ask you one question? Why are we giving you $200 billion? Why are we subsidizing Canada? If Canada was a state, it wouldn't cost us. It would be great. It would be such a great, it would be a cherished state. And if you look at our map, if you look at the geography, I'm a real estate guy at heart. When I look down at that, without that artificial line that was drawn with a ruler many years ago, it was just an artificial line, goes straight across. You don't even realize what a beautiful country it would be. It would be great. But I don't think the American public wants me to pay $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. Again, remember this.
Yeah.
We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. We do very little business with Canada. They do all of their business practically with us.
You and I.
They need us. We don't need them.
You and I talked, and
This is where we get into dangerous territory. Because people who talk about the tariffs, anytime people say, well, look at all the tariffs that were slapped against Canada, those people are usually uneducated on the tariffs that we have slapped against the United States when it comes to the dairy cartel, meat, numerous things we send to the United States. We have been taking our lion's share, so to speak, for quite some time. And what Donald Trump has looked at throughout his campaign is efficiency. He's looked at unnecessary spending. I'm not saying he's correct. You know, his comments here about Canada and about what he wants to do with Canada are not the easiest to digest for Canadians. But this is, again, separating business from a representative in government. He's looking at the numbers. He's looking at the benefits if he were to make Canada a 51st state. We're not going anywhere with this stuff. Like, Mark Carney is not going to be able to shut this down. Anybody who voted for Mark Carney, and you guys remember it during the election, anytime Rebel News went down to Ontario and talked to Southern Ontario people, especially in Nepean, and said, you know, what do you think about Mark Carney? Well, I think he's the best one to handle Donald Trump. Really? Really? Think we're going to get anywhere with this one? Like I said, they're about to figure out what they paid for, and they're going to have buyer's remorse. Let's keep going.
I asked you if you would rule out military force to take Greenland, and you said no, you don't rule out anything. Would you rule out military force to take Canada?
Well, I think we're not going to ever get to that point. It could happen. Something could happen with Greenland. I'll be honest. We need that for national and international security.
But not.
I think.
So he goes into Greenland after this, and there's no point in showing that. But again, it gets to him saying it's not going to get to that point with Canada. Again, I go back to Jordan Peterson's amazing video before the election, pre-election, where he discussed that what the federal government needs to do with provinces like Alberta is they don't just have to give Alberta a great deal. And now I'm not quoting him verbatim because it was quite some time I watched that video ago, but it wasn't that. It was that the federal government needs to give a better deal than Donald Trump to Alberta. Because if Donald Trump were to work with Danielle Smith to say, look, you need military, we'll give you military. You want sovereignty, we'll give you sovereignty. You want to become the 51st state, we can make that happen. The problem you have here is there's multiple entities upset with the Canadian federal government. You've got people in each province that are talking about secession from Confederation. You've got people in Alberta who are fed up with their energy sector. You've got people who are just fed up with Donald Trump in some provinces that just want all this to end. They want the prices of their food to come down. They want gas to come down. They want their lives to get back to normal. None of this is going to happen anytime soon. Donald Trump will not secede. He will not step back. Mark Carney is not going to be able to find a reasonable negotiation to Donald Trump. The point of that being, what happens when Albertans go to their leader and say, we've had enough? These tariffs, they're not coming to an end. Nothing's coming to an end. That's why anybody who says, and again, I'm sure Danielle Smith's conference later today is going to be her talking about working with Mark Carney. And people say, well, what if separatization is dying out? What if the flames are being fanned out? Are people going to give up on separatization? Is it really just a small grassroots movement? I don't believe so. Well, they attained the signatures that they needed very quickly after the election. And saying, well, a lot of that is people being angry, a lot of that is people just reacting to the election. I think as time goes on, when people say that no change is coming, in fact, things are going to get worse, that's when you're going to see what is really going to happen in Alberta, Saskatchewan, parts of British Columbia, Manitoba. You're going to see the talk of what are we really doing here heating up significantly as people's lives get more and more difficult, and we see no change from the federal government. The people who lobbied and picked up Mark Carney are going to say, hey, I thought you were going to handle this. I thought you were going to get rid of Donald Trump. None of that's going to happen. So I guess in the meantime, we hope that those who are pushing for change, whether it be secession, whether it be change for their lives to get better, that things stay vigilant, that things stay well backed, so that when all of this comes crashing down, there's still pressure. Our governments, and I'm talking provincial as well, are going to have to make a decision in the near future. Do we back the people or do we back the feds? Your guess is as good as mine as to where that's going to go, but I will be here to keep you up to date as things go on. We know where Donald stands. The question now is, where do our leaders stand? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're hitting that button, you click your bell for all notifications so that you're alerted every time a video drops. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central every Friday night here on the channel. I'll be joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we talk to you guys outside of making these videos on everything that's happened this week in politics, everything we know that's coming up in the week ahead, as well as hearing your Q&A in those live streams. I look very much forward to hearing what you have to say in those lives. Make sure you join us for those. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.